Hello, everybody. I'm Ellis, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some of the data and statistics around UFO sightings in the UK in recent years. First of all, I just want to thank Ryan for inviting me to talk in this year's Anomicon. I really enjoyed last year's and I really hope that I can contribute something good to this one. And it's great to be talking alongside some amazing names, some names I've looked up to and followed their work for years. So it's amazing to kind of be on the same lineup as these people. So thanks to Ryan again for that. So kind of quickly introduce kind of myself and UFO Identified, and then we'll crack on with the bulk of the presentation. So to start off, UFO Identified, who we are and what we do. So as I said, my name is Ellis. I created UFO Identified in 2020. Started off as just me on my own doing this stuff. It's now grown to a core team of 4 of us. And we also have teams around the UK doing research and investigations kind of on our behalf. We're one of the biggest research groups in the UK and we're growing constantly. We also host events and meetings up and down the country, giving like-minded people a chance to come and talk about UFOs and that sort of stuff. I host the Pursuit of the Paranormal podcast. We do episodes on UFOs, paranormal, cryptids, anything really, anything that's kind of above what is normal. Been running for nearly 4 years and almost 300 episodes. So yeah, check us out if you want to for that. So like I said, we research and investigate UFO sightings in the UK. Over the past 4 years, we have received over 250 different sightings reported directly to us. We personally investigate as many of these as possible and publish our reports on the website. The team all do their own research and investigations, and we publish that on the website as well as our annual UK UFO report, where we look at all the data and stats of the previous 12 months and kind of see if we can spot any trends or interesting stuff that's happened in the previous year, which most of that we're going to be talking about in this talk. The main thing we have is, and what we are most proud of, is the biggest database of current day UFO reports in this country. We collect these reports from all different sources, from different databases, from newspapers, media articles, social media, all different places. We put them all into one central database so we can really get a big picture of what is happening in the UK, because a lot of the stuff we get is about America, whereas I wanted to know what's happening in the UK, and we're filling that gap for people that are interested. In 2023, we featured in over 100 newspaper articles, TV interviews, radio interviews, because the media do like the information that we give. They want articles on like sightings local to their area and kind of do features on that type of stuff. And last year we worked very closely with the Daily Mirror, which is one of the biggest newspapers in the UK, and we created an interactive map where you can go on the website, put in your postcode, or just search around the map. And it will tell you sightings in your local area for anywhere in the UK. So that was really cool, and that really helped kind of grow us as well, being a part of that. So, moving on. As mentioned, we have the biggest database of current day UFO reports in the UK, starting from 2020, which is when UFO Identified started. Like I say, our sources start from databases like MUFON or NewFork, local groups, like UFO groups around the country, media articles. We do Freedom of Information Acts requests every year to every police force, to military bases, to airports, to CAA, and a lot more. We get as much information as we can and put them all into the database. But remember that these are reported UFO sightings, and the estimate is that only between 10 to 15% of sightings are actually reported, and that's something we'll come on to shortly. I'm just going to preface this section by saying that I love the numbers. I love the stats and seeing how these numbers compare year on year and looking at the data. I appreciate that not everybody does, so I try to make this as engaging as possible, whilst also making sure that we get the appropriate information across, because I think this type of research is important, and I'm not aware of anybody else that does this in the UK. One thing to note that I do like about this type of work is that in this industry, in the UFO field, there isn't a lot of cold hard facts. nobody has really been able to prove anything. That bit of actual evidence always eludes us. And a lot of this is based on witness testimony. Sightings and experiences are all kind of personal, and it's testimony only for most of the stuff. Sometimes get photos and videos, but they're not always the best. Even with mobile phones and everything nowadays, they're not usually that good, and they don't really kind of give much proof to anything. So we do have, for the most part, got to take faith in the person reporting the sightings, that what they're saying is truthful to them, that they're not just lying or making something up for attention or whatever. So the work that we do, which I'm going to talk about, is, I like to say, it's based around fact. For example, in 2022, there were X amount of UFO sightings reported in the UK that were reported somewhere publicly. That's a fact. It doesn't matter whether those sightings could all be explained or most of them could be explained. It's the fact that when that person made that report, they didn't know what they saw. So they've reported a UFO or a UAP. So the data and analysis that we can extrapolate from these reports, that is all based in fact. Something that will become clear as we move on. So let's take a look at these numbers. In your head, or maybe in the chat, try and have a guess at how many UFO sightings you think are reported each year in the UK. Let's take a minute, maybe have a think, like I say, in your head or in the chat, see what other people are thinking. To give you a bit of a help, the population of the UK is around 67 million at the minute. So yeah, let's see what you get. So if we start in 2020, which is when basically our records began, when our research began, there were 484 reports in 2020. Anyone surprised by that number? Do you think it'd be higher, lower? In 2021, there's a drop to 413 before a sizable increase to just under 500 during 2022. Then saw a big drop of around 20% to 386 in 2023, so last year. On the whole, we can see that the trends are kind of similar. And the drop in 2021 went back up, went back down in 2023. Bit of a funny story. In 2021, I was approached by a producer for This Morning in the UK, which is a massively popular daytime TV show, millions of viewers every day. And they were doing a feature on UFOs and how UFO sightings had increased during the COVID lockdown. So he approached me, found the website, wanted me to come on and talk to Holly and Phil at the time about how UFO sightings had increased. Well, I had the data, and UFO sightings actually decreased to 2021. And before that, because at the time I had the stats from 2018 and 2019, and the 2020 number was a drop from the previous 2 years as well. So I said to the producer, I'm happy to go on, but I got the data, I've got the information, and actually UFO sightings decreased during lockdown. They weren't interested at all. They pretty much said, no, not interested anymore, sorry. I was like, no problem. Obviously, my stats didn't fit their narrative. They didn't want me to go on and talk about how sightings decreased because that's not really a story. So I watched the feature when they did it, and they got this guy on, and he went on the show and talked about how UFO sightings had increased during lockdown. And I'm sat there watching, thinking, show me where you're getting this from. Like, show me the data, show me the proof. But yeah, not going to go on telly just to say anything to kind of get on telly, you know what I mean? So going back to the numbers. So we're going to be looking at, in this presentation, at a total of 1,780 reports made in the past 4 years, and what this means in terms of where these are being reported, what's being seen, and when. Each of these reports are detailed in our database at ufoidentified.co.uk. And obviously, as we move forward into 2024 and beyond, this database will just get bigger and bigger with more information, and we always plan to put the information out there for everybody to access. So now, just to break into when these sightings are being made, let's start with the month. To be fair, it's pretty evenly distributed, with a drop-off towards the winter months, particularly November and December. I think as the weather starts to get worse and much colder, we tend to stay inside more, so we're just not there to see anything in the sky. You can see how sightings increase in the spring and the summertime, which again we can attribute to the weather. We are outside more, so we're just more likely to see something unusual. However, on the flip side to this, the days are much longer, not getting dark until 9 or 10 p.m. in the peak summertime. So the sky isn't as dark, so would that make it more unlikely to see something during the hours of daylight? And this brings me on to a fact that I found pretty interesting. Over 40% of sightings are actually reported during daylight hours. It's higher than I would expect that to be. I think we just generally imagine UFO sightings to be at night, and I think media and films and stuff has kind of a part to play in that. But evidently, that isn't the case. So daytime sky watches are good. You don't have to just sit in the cold at night in the dark, looking at the top of a hill. Daytime's fine. 40%, over 40% are seen during the daytime hours. And I don't just base this off the time because the month is important. 5 p.m. in August would be a daytime sighting, but 5 p.m. in December would be classed as a nighttime one because the days are much shorter and we get dark around 4 o'clock in the winter. So back to the months. There's a couple of interesting things to talk about when we do year-on-year comparisons. July is up there with higher numbers throughout each of the 4 years. August is notable, 31 reports in both 2020 and 2021, then a jump to pretty much double or more in the following 2 years. October's pretty steady, as is May and June, showing similar numbers each year. Just to visualize this a bit better in a graph. So left to right for each month, blue is 2020, red 21, yellow 22, and green is last year. You can clearly see the jump in August over the past 2 years. But just look at March and April 2020 in the blue. Off the charts, literally. March came in at 109 to be exact in 2020, and April was 90 sightings. They both massively tower over all the other months over the past 4 years. Does anyone have any ideas why March and April 2020 might have seen such a big increase in sightings? Let's have a quick drink while you have a think again in your head, or maybe put it in the chat. So when I do this talk in person, people do mention lockdown because lockdown started March 2020, and yeah, is that a reason why? No. As I said previously, sightings actually decreased during lockdown, so that isn't something that I believe to be an explanation for this. What the region actually is, does anyone know what this is? If you're watching this type of talk, you probably know what this is. But that's the Starlink SpaceX satellites. And during March and April 2020, Elon Musk launched a lot of these trains. There he is, probably buying Twitter or Russia or something. But these Starlink trains are satellites designed to give internet coverage to every inch of the globe. And they're used by the government, by corporate bodies. You can get it in the UK. But it is expensive. I looked. I was like, not a chance. £80 a month or something for like the basic, and hundreds of pounds to install it. No thanks, Elon. I think you're rich enough for having to take more of me. So yeah, these appear as a trail of lights moving in formation, and these caused hundreds of reports, with some people being scared that we've been invaded, and all sorts. There were so many complaints by astronomers and others that Elon Musk took action to reduce the brightness of future launches by painting them darker, so that they don't reflect as bright, and also aiming the visors on the satellites different directions so they're not reflecting back to Earth, just to cause less pollution in the sky. But it looks cool though, and you can see how, if you're not sure what they are, if you see that in the sky, you might think you're being invaded. It's pretty spectacular, it really is. And they don't always remain in the train. When they launch, they go like this, but when they get into orbit, each satellite will have its own kind of position it needs to move into. So when people report like this similar, but they were moving across each other or moving left to right, some are moving north to south, east to west, it's because they're moving into position, getting into their own orbits. So they do look not always in the train like they do when they first kind of get launched. So moving on now to where sightings are being made. Are different areas of the UK more prone to UFOs than others? Let's find out. So that's our lovely little island. And for each sighting, we document the town, county, region, and so on, see if there are indeed so-called hotspot areas of reports. And so we built this funky little heat map. I'm such a whiz on Microsoft Paint. I'm quite proud of that, actually. I do need someone who's actually good at graphic art or something to do with proper ones, but yeah, we'll stick with this for now. Obviously, the darker shade of red, the more sightings reported in that region. This is broken down into the 9 regions of England, plus Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland's not on this map, but it's just to the left of Scotland, which is the big one at the top. If you don't know the little one in the middle, it's kind of on its own. That's the Isle of Man. Technically not part of the UK or the EU. I've included that purely because they had one sighting in the past 4 years, and they kind of are in the British Isles. So I've included it for that. So we look at the kind of the darker area. So down south, southeast, below London, you're looking at Kent, Hampshire. Them areas really, really dark red. To the left of them, southwest, that's Cornwall, Devon. Quite a not as populated area, but still a lot of sightings coming up. And kind of the Midlands is sort of a lighter pinks, not much going on there. And Wales to the left in that pinky colour, not too bright. Then we've got the northwest where it goes back to darker red. That's my part of the world. And then Scotland, again, quite a dark red. So just to bring up the actual numbers to go with these colours. On the right, we have each region of England. And you can clearly see the difference in number of reports from area to area. Plus the Isle of Man with their one report. The southeast has the sheer biggest number of reports with 233. My area, the northwest, is second with 216. Back down to the south with the southwest, 190, and so on. On the left, we've got the other countries of the UK. Scotland with a not insignificant 161. And Wales, an area long purported to be a UFO hotspot. Quite a few famous cases from Wales, with a relatively lowly 97 reports. And Northern Ireland rounds us off with just 30. The order of this league table is very indicative of the trend we've seen, with the same areas consistently being at or near the top of this list year on year. If any of you are quick at maths, you may spot that the total of all these numbers doesn't quite equal the full total of 1,780. That's because there's around 90 reports that don't mention the location, but we can still use the day, time, description, etc. We just don't know where in the UK it was seen. So let's just look at the location data in a bit more detail. Clearly, the vast majority are in England. No surprise, really, being as populated as it is compared with Scotland and Wales. And just to quickly look at the trends of the other countries of the UK. Northern Ireland has always kind of been pretty low, decreasing each year from 12 reports in 2020. Scotland and Wales both saw year-on-year increases in 2021 and 2022, before both saw a considerable drop last year. It's interesting that they both followed the same trend. Coming into England and looking at all the regions together. So this is the numbers we saw previously on the heat map, with Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland added in. So as a reminder that we're working from a total of 1,780 reports in this 4-year period across the whole of the UK. Let's just think about that for a second. If we go off a figure that only 10% are actually reported somewhere, and somewhere that we've been able to find it, there's probably some places where we don't look, that we don't know about, that aren't included in our database. So if we say 10% is reported, that's actually a massive 18,000 reports in the UK. And that's quite incredible. That's a lot. And if everybody spoke about it, if everybody talked about it, we were more open, maybe the conversation would be a lot easier than what we do have. Maybe we'd be more accepted than it is. In my experience, most people don't have a problem talking about believing in ghosts or ghost experiences, but UFO sightings do still get ridiculed and still have that stigma attached. Just look at any online article about UFOs, look in the comments. It's all people saying people are drunk or on drugs and stuff like that. It's just, it's stupid. The ridicule is still prevalent, sadly. So almost half of the total reports are made in just 4 regions. As mentioned, the southeast with northwest and southwest, and then Yorkshire. So if we kind of think about why these regions might have more, and in some cases considerably more than other regions, for me, I mean, they're highly populated. The northwest, we've got Manchester, big and pretty built up. Liverpool, Preston, Lancaster, Chester, all pretty well populated. Likewise with the southeast, Southampton, Portsmouth, Reading, Oxford, Brighton, and so on. This image of the UK at night kind of highlights this. The bright one near the bottom is London. And obviously around that is built up. And then you've got the northwest, where it's bright again, and then Yorkshire just to the right of the northwest. So kind of showing how much light there is, how populated that area is. That's where you've also seen the most amount of sightings. So does that play a part in sightings? Is that why we're seeing more sightings in different areas, in certain areas at least? So we're going to do a little bit of maths. So since we started doing our annual reports back in 2020, we have thought a lot about the population aspect and how much of a part that actually plays. So we devised a formula, a method of working out whether a certain area is actually having more sightings or whether it's just because there's more people living there. This formula we dubbed the rate of sighting. This little calculation works out how many UFO reports there are per 250,000 population. In our opinion, this gives a better indication of how likely you are to see something unusual, no matter which part of the country that you're in. To give an example of this, so the population of the UK is around 67 million. We are looking at a total of 1,780 reports. If we use our formula, we divide the number of sightings by the population and times that by 250,000. And that gives us the rate of sighting for the UK as a whole for the past 4 years is 6.6. That means there were 6.6 reports made for every 250,000 people in the UK. Doing this calculation for each different region in the UK gives us a new table. The number we see is now a lot smaller and a lot easier to work with. Put simply, this figures how many UFOs are reported for every 250,000 people in each region for the past 4 years. And there's some notable differences. The eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed straight away that the top of the table has now changed. I'll bring up the other table just so that we can compare side by side. Quite a bit of change going on. The southeast, who had the highest number of reports altogether, actually moves down to mid-table with a rate of sighting of just 6.3, below the UK average, despite having the most reports than anywhere else in the UK. It's actually below average. The northwest also takes a little bit of a drop, but at the top, Yorkshire leapfrogs them all to top the table as the most likely region to see a UFO. I love AI. For those outside the UK, Yorkshire is famous for sheep and what the farmers might do with them. So, just having a look, London, which is pretty low on the table, a very densely populated area, goes even lower. The least likely place to see a UFO is London, despite a lot of people living there. So this could be one, obviously a lot of light pollution in London, very, very lit up, as you can remember from the night sky map. And also, people seem to be busy in London. People seem to be very occupied and maybe not taking the time to look. That could explain that. But yeah, so I prefer this way, looking at the data, as it does take the population issue out of the equation and gives us a more accurate picture of what is happening around the country. And the rate of sightings number quickly gives comparison information, such as being able to say that you are now twice as likely to see a UFO in Yorkshire than you are in Northern Ireland, for example. So now we know where the reports are coming from. What are people actually seeing? For simplification, for both here and in our official reports, we group similar types of sightings together. For example, descriptions such as cigar shape and tic-tac, which has become more common recently, are grouped together under the cylinder category. Likewise, you'll find arrowhead, delta, and chevron under the triangle heading. Otherwise, it would be an endless list of different shapes and just impossible to work with. This table shows how many of each classification or shape has been reported since 2020. The other heading typically includes descriptions that are hard to categorize or that just have one type of that report. This includes things like worm-like or octagon, things that are quite hard to actually put into a shape. The most common type of sighting, and this is the same across the whole of the UK, is what we categorise as star-like, which will typically be a small white light or object in the night sky that looks like a star but is usually moving or otherwise acting strangely. Many explanations for this type of sighting are satellites, the International Space Station, which appears as a bright light moving steadily across the sky, and more recently, the SpaceX Starlink, again, which have caused a huge amount of reports in recent years. Back to the table, orbs in second place, and these are different to star-like in that what we would call orbs have a bit more to them rather than just a pinpoint light in the sky. They're commonly different colours and having clear visible movements. They're also regularly seen in daytime, and these are the second most commonly reported shape. Also in the list, we have the traditional disc shape, and of course the classic black triangle, a staple since the 80s and 90s. And they do seem to have a bit of resurgence in the past couple of years. My own sighting back in 1997 was a black triangle, so I'm always interested in these reports. We've also seen an increase in the number of sphere-type sightings recently, kind of echoing what's been getting reported by American military pilots and also seen over war zones, such as the Mosul orb footage which came to light last year, taking over Iraq. You may recognise this image, which caused quite a stir, but still might be a light reflecting in a puddle. We don't know for sure. Going back to the table, and these top 5 descriptions, star-like, orb, sphere, cylinder, and triangle, make up around 50% of total sightings, so a big chunk. 33 are recorded as unknown. This is when the witness hasn't given much of a description. Sometimes the report will just say object or UFO seen, without mention of any type of shape that we could attribute to it. Where's the evidence? To quickly consider this, and it's a fair point, there's thousands of reports just in the UK. Where's the evidence? Personally, the evidence for me is with the person, the witness. Those that have experienced it, like myself. I can't explain properly what I saw 20 odd years ago, and I probably never will. That is my own personal evidence. But of course, that isn't going to be enough for a lot of people. They want to see the proof. Based on the sightings that we're looking at, this chart covers off what evidence, if any, has been supplied with these reports. Over 50% are witness testimony only, so it's just their statement basically. Pretty much a quarter of reports had accompanying video, and 19% had a photo with them. A small percentage supplied a sketch of what they saw as an alternative, and that's something that I always recommend if you can't get a photo or a video. A sketch, a quick drawing of what you saw, can really aid an investigation. And do this as soon as possible after the event. The human memory is very fallible, so even a rough piece of paper with a sketch and key details can go a long way, particularly if you don't report it right away. If there's multiple witnesses, I always ask them to separately draw what they're seeing so that they don't kind of corroborate on it or influence each other's drawing or description. Even with a fair amount of video and photo footage being submitted, there's not really been anything mind-blowing. The main issue is phone cameras. They aren't designed for taking pictures of things in the sky, things at night, things at distance. Most phone cameras are designed for selfies. Particularly if you zoom in, that just ruins the image further. How many of us have seen images like this on social media? This is called bokeh or bokeh, not sure how to pronounce it. But basically, it's an out of focus point of light. These are usually stars or satellites that someone has used their phone to zoom in on, and the phone just can't focus on it, so it starts giving off this effect. On videos, they can appear to be spinning, changing shapes, and sometimes changing colour. It can look unusual, but if it looks like this, it's bokeh. It's not a shape-shifting craft, which is what a lot of people on social media like to call them. I urge anyone taking photos or videos of strange lights or objects to not zoom in unless you have a proper analog zoom. Digital zooms, which most phones have, well, all phones will have, all they're zooming in on is the pixel. They're not actually zooming in on the object. They're zooming in on the photo of the object in the screen, if that makes sense. So it just gets pixelated the more you zoom in. So It's easier to take a picture normally and to then zoom in using proper software on a computer rather than using your phone's poor camera in most cases. So we've looked at where and what is being seen. How about when? To be fair, again, it's pretty even, although Saturday does spring out in front with over 300 in total out of all the reports. Sunday is the most popular day in 2020. Saturday is the most popular in 21 and 22. And interestingly, last year, Monday takes the title, taking it away from being on a weekend. So Saturday is the most popular day. What about the most popular time of day? Clearly, we can see the vast majority of sightings are made later in the day, with this big increase starting from 6 p.m, with the bulk being between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. Although, don't let that take away from the fact that there are sightings all day. At every single hour, we get reported sightings. So, like I say, it doesn't have to be nighttime. They can be seen any time of day. So, the most likely time to see a UFO is between 9 and 11 p.m. on a Saturday. Just have a quick think, maybe again, put in the chat, thinking in your head why you think this might be the case. I'll just have a quick drink. So one that shouts out to me, and when I do this presentation in person, this is usually one of the answers that gets given pretty soon, pretty quickly, is this. It really doesn't help our cause. And we get so many comments on social media and newspapers from our peers, from our family, saying things like, must have been drunk, bet he'd been in the pub when he'd seen the aliens, stuff like that, rubbish like that. I mean, it could explain some reports. Alcohol can affect your perception, your reasoning skills. I won't argue that you may interpret something in the sky differently if you're drunk than when you're sober. Definitely not. But I am going to counter this argument. So if we go back to the day chart, so we can see Saturday's out in front. Look at Friday. It's the second least most likely day to see UFO. Only Wednesday having fewer reports. But a lot of people go out on a Friday as well as a Saturday. So surely if that was the reason why there's so many on the Saturday, there'd also be an uptick of sightings on Friday if alcohol was the factor. Aside from that, what other reasons could there be? Work. Most people spend Monday to Friday simply working or at home. So does having extra time at the weekend allow people to just chill and take in what's happening around them? When you're at work, you come home, probably have to make your tea, sort the kids out, watch a bit of telly, then you go in bed, and you're doing the same the next day. So you might not have even been outside in the week if you're like busy at work and stuff like that. Whereas at the weekend, it's not as rushed. You have the time. You might go out, take the kids out to the park, go for a walk, go out for a pub, go out for a smoke outside the pub and see stuff outside. Just because you're at the pub doesn't mean you're drunk and that's why you're seeing something. It's just like you're actually outside and you're actually looking at the sky. And again, looking at the kind of the summer months, more reports in the summer than the winter. We're outside more. In winter, it's cold, it's dark. People want to get in and just get cozy and sit in front of the fire watching telly. In the summer, you're outside, you're playing, you're going on holiday, you're just not rushed about as much. You've got more time to be outside. So I think that is one of the main reasons why that sightings are more likely at weekends or in the summer, not because you had a drink. I don't think that's the main explanation. And I would always argue against it. It's just an easy target for skeptics out there to say, yeah, Saturday night between 9 and 11 o'clock, most UFO sightings, I wonder why. Yeah. So it's, again, it doesn't help our cause, but we definitely can argue against that being the reason. So that's it for the stats. Thanks for bearing through that. I hope it wasn't too, I don't know. Like I say, I like the numbers. I like the stats. I know not everybody does. So yeah, if you enjoyed that, yeah, I hope you did, and let me know. But the key takeaway from it is that over the past 4 years in the UK, you're most likely to see a UFO on a Saturday night between 9 and 11 p.m. in Yorkshire. So to finish off this talk, I'm now going to talk through a couple of investigations that we've done in recent years that have been particularly interesting. So this first case, as it states there, on Thursday, 22nd of April, 21, with multiple witnesses between 3 and 6 p.m. So on this day, there were 8 reports across the UK, either reported to MUFON, local newspapers, or posted on YouTube. Although 4 of these seem unrelated, the other 4 do have some striking similarities to each other, and that's what we're going to be examining in this presentation. So the first of these 4 reports was filmed from a Morrison's car park in Hamilton, South Lanarkshire, in Scotland. The 17-second clip on YouTube channel Daily Triumph shows an object moving seemingly at speed across the clear sky, glinting regularly as it reflects the bright afternoon sun. This isn't the clearest pic, but it appears to show a sphere or fluid-shaped object. In the video, it's a bit clearer to see. The second sighting was reported in the Grimsby Telegraph, with an accompanying clip reported by the witness Malcolm C., who was in his garden when he first noticed the object hovering in the sky at 3:20. After around 40 minutes, he looked again and saw that it was still visible, this time with a plane nearby. At this point, started videoing the object. In the clip, the object appears to be hovering, occasionally glinting as the sun hits it. As the video ends, the object shot off at speed. This screen grab from the video shows a clear bean or kidney-shaped white object. The next sighting, as reported in the Manchester Evening News, the witness, Dave W., was parked nearby to Rochdale Infirmary in Manchester when an object directly in front of him in the sky caught his eye. The 73-second clip he recorded shows, for the most part, an object seemingly hovering in place, possibly rotating, and regularly reflecting the sun. Again, this white kind of bean-shaped object. The fourth report came a bit further south, down in London. It's taken from a 3-minute video clip posted to YouTube channel Viral Video UK, which shows an object moving slowly across the sky above a park, rotating and reflecting the bright sun, as in the previous reports. Again, a white, small, circular, like odd-shaped circle craft. Object, can't say craft, object. So, 4 reports from right across the country within a relatively short time period of 3 hours with what appeared to be similar looking objects. On the face of it, and viewed independently, my immediate thought was that these were simply balloons of some kind. Most of the time, I'd simply move on and look at the next case, but we cannot ignore the witness testimony in these cases, as well as the clear similarities and look at all of them together. Especially between the Grimsby and Rochdale objects with their bean-like shape, clearly visible, and the London sighting as well. The images don't come across as well on the screen, but they are all a similar shape, especially when watching the video the screen grabbed from. They all act similar, they all look very, very similar. Of course, these are generally poor quality videos recorded on mobile phones. I don't need to repeat the problems we have with this. So my next step was to reach out and speak to the witnesses in each case. Thankfully, I was able to speak with the Grimsby and Rochdale witnesses, 2 of the more compelling of the 4. Attempts to locate the remaining witnesses haven't been successful, although the caption accompanying the London video on YouTube carried the following statement. The object was much lower and more visible. It's really quite mind-boggling as it seems to show it looks like a multi-faced solid object, almost pyramidal in shape or multi-sided, and the object appears to then come apart and then reform and looks like some strange ball of energy. Due to the limited information for the Hamilton and London sightings though, my report from here on in will concentrate mostly on the Grimsby and Rochdale sightings. According to the historic data, the weather across the UK during the afternoon of the 22nd of April was clear, mostly cloudless skies, which we can see in the pictures. This was pretty consistent across the country, with cool temperatures and a wind speed of no more than 3 to 4 miles per hour, classed as a light breeze on the Beaufort scale. April 22nd is also Earth Day, which marks the anniversary of the modern environmental movement in 1970 and pledges support for environment protection around the world, raising awareness of pollution and ways to maintain a clean habitat. There are events which are traditionally celebrated with the release of balloons. However, Earth Day is not one of them. Balloons do return to Earth and they are now litter, and they've also caused injuries and death to many animals and caused dangerous power outages, which directly contradicts the message that Earth Day tries to impart. I couldn't find any other events on the same date, which may explain balloons being released at different parts of the country at around the same time. Because if they are balloons, they're not the same balloon. And any similarities must be purely coincidental, as there's no chance that it could have travelled distances involved in the time periods described, especially with low winds that day. Scotland down to London, you're looking 400 miles. Probably, easily, I think. So, starting with the Grimsby sighting, as this is by far the most fascinating incident of the four, for reasons that I'll come on to. After speaking with the witness Malcolm, I was able to gain further information about what was seen to aid in helping to try and identify the object. The object was first seen at 3:20 in the afternoon when he was out in his garden playing with his young son. He started recording at 15:55 when he noticed the object was still visible and there was also a plane nearby. Although being reported as being above Grimsby and published in the Grimsby Telegraph newspaper, the witness was actually in Market Raisin, some 15 miles away from Grimsby, and the object was viewed to the southeast, away from Grimsby, and more towards the direction of Skegness, as shown in this map. So the blue arrow shows the direction of sighting from where the witness was located, and the black line going from right to left shows the direction of travel of the object, moving from the coast on the right hand side, more inland over Lincoln, to the left. The witness stopped filming the object as the sun was too bright, after which the object notched up a few gears and shot off and disappeared. 10 minutes after the object disappeared, an AWACS plane from RAF Waddington was seen flying over the area. This is confirmed by Flight Radar 24 data. This is where it gets interesting. An AWACS plane is the Royal Air Force's Airborne Warning and Control System, which is the name of the specific system installed on Boeing E-3 Sentry planes that look like this. You may have seen one of these or two around your time, especially if you're kind of investigating this subject. These planes are pretty interesting. These airborne radar systems are designed to detect aircraft, ships, vehicles, missiles, and other incoming projectiles at long ranges and perform command and control of the battle space in an air engagement by directing fighter and attack aircraft strikes. AEW and C units are also used to carry out surveillance. When used at altitude, the radar on the aircraft allows the operators to detect and track targets, which is the important bit. So, returning to the sighting in Grimsby and using the app Flight Radar 24, we can confirm that one of these E-3 sentries were in the exact area at the time, the witness claimed. Might not be able to see it very clear, but the time and date is here at the bottom. So Thursday, 22nd of April, and at 16:15, not long after the object had shot off, as the witness described it, and in the exact location heading towards Lincoln. And if we draw that black line on again from the previous map showing where the object was headed, we can see it's in the same place. The red bit is the plane, and the black line is the direction of travel that the object was seeing. What you can't see fully on here is the full flight path. The Sentry took off from RAF Waddington, flew up over the North Sea to Scotland, and then back down again, seemingly headed towards base at RAF Waddington. However, look at what it does next. Instead of returning to base, as it seemed to be, it does this. So from a pretty standard straight flight path up to Scotland and back again, to then flying around in this pattern, in the exact area where a strange object had been seen just minutes earlier. Just to zoom in and show this a bit better. This looks more like a search pattern. When you see police helicopters, police airplanes going up looking for people, they do this kind of back and forth, circular flight paths, trying to find or follow whatever they're looking for. I'm not a military aviation expert by any means, And I can't say whether this is normal behaviour or not, but it definitely begs the question of whether the plane was diverted to this as a result of the object. It's definitely not a stretch to think along those lines. So I reached out to the RAF and the MOD, Ministry of Defence, in an attempt to get the flight data, the flight recordings, whether this was a pre-planned exercise, and whether this was a deviation from the original flight plan. After numerous back and twos using Freedom of Information requests, I was told that this flight was, and I quote, a routine and uneventful training sortie and did not result in any such investigation or proceedings, and there was therefore no need to retain the documentation. I'm not sure I believe that. So a point to make is that these requests were made less than a month after this sighting and after this flight. And they're telling me that the flight data and the flight logs are destroyed within such a short time period. Again, I'm not an expert, that may be standard, but it just seems to me that they would keep that information for longer. I did reach out to an RAF pilot who had been my contact for a couple of years, and I sent him all the information, and I asked him if this seemed normal or did this look unusual, and he ghosted me, and he hasn't actually spoken to me since. Don't know if there's anything to do with that, but yeah, I lost a contact there, which is a shame. I also reached out to RAF Waddington base themselves, but had no response. The raw data from the video provided by the witness was checked and confirmed that the date and time were as stated. And other information, like the plane being seen, also evidence and proven, so I've got no reason to doubt the testimony of this witness in this case. Moving on to the Rochdale, Greater Manchester sighting, not too far from Todmorden, which is an old hotspot area of West Yorkshire, and the scene of the famous incident with police officer Alan Godfrey, which I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with. In this case, however, the witness, Dave, was in his car parked outside Rochdale Infirmary waiting for a family member to finish their appointment at the hospital. Initially thinking this object was a reflection on his windscreen, he exited the vehicle to get a better look. The object was opposite him in a due south direction, looking towards Oldham and the more built-up Manchester City area. The object appeared stationary for the best part of 10 minutes before beginning to drift eastwards, keeping perpendicular to the horizon with no apparent upwards or downwards movement. After 5 minutes or so, the object stopped and moved vertically upwards at a slightly faster speed. After a couple more minutes, it changed direction, heading in the northwest trajectory towards the setting sun. There appeared to be an aircraft following the same trajectory, but at a much higher altitude. This is the point he started to record the object on his mobile phone. The whole sighting lasted around 30 minutes, and he stopped recording when his family called to tell him that they were ready to be picked up. Dave supplied me with 2 different videos of the object, both showing the object behaving as described, and upon looking at the raw data, the time and dates again confirm that it was at that time and at the location he said outside the hospital. So again, I've got no doubt to any of the testimony given by the witness in this case. In the 30 to 40 minutes following the sighting, there were a number of military and commercial aircraft that flew over the area, but all seemed to be on a pre-planned route following the regular flight path, and none flew over the location specifically. So, as mentioned, and despite the less than high quality standard of the stills, you can clearly see that these objects appear to be the same shape with the same reflective qualities. These similarities are even more noticeable when watching the recordings. What is more striking with these 2 cases is that both witnesses described the objects as being stationary for a long period of time before kind of moving off at different speeds. Therefore, this part of the investigation I'm going to be asking, can Mylar balloons remain stationary in place? When looking into this, and I am not a clever guy by any stretch, the science behind it came a bit complicated. So obviously I just try and keep it simple is the best way to explain it. So helium balloons are pulled by gravity, as are all objects with mass. The reason they don't fall to Earth is that there is another force acting on them, a buoyant force from air pressure that is equal to the weight of the air displaced by the balloon. This causes the balloon to rise upwards. For a balloon to hover or remain in place, the average density of the gas inside it would have to be equal to the air outside of it, This is easy to achieve in a controlled setting, such as indoors, as you would know the equilibrium of air density was matched. There's no way of knowing the air density at higher altitudes, plus there are other factors to consider, such as winds, humidity, temperature, all of which would have an effect on the air density. Let's not forget that mylar balloons also lose in air density as the helium molecules inside are smaller than the pores in the skin of the balloon, which is why balloons always deflate eventually. For these reasons, it'd be highly unlikely and difficult for a balloon to remain stationary in one place for any extended period of time. For this effect to be replicated in different areas, to be witnessed and captured on video, to look as similar to each other as they do, and all happening within a few hours of each other on the same day, makes this explanation even more unlikely. Based on the witness testimony as well as the evidence, I ruled out that this is a balloon. It's just not a balloon to me. I'll also consider what else it isn't. It's not a drone, or not one that we know about, at least. It's not a bird or any other animal. It's not any conventional aircraft. It's not a cloud or other meteorological object. It's not a star, planet, or any other astronomical body. So where does this leave us? High altitude balloon, also known as a weather balloon, it's a possibility, albeit a small one. These are usually at a much higher altitude and wouldn't be in the vicinity of other aircraft due to the chance of a collision. High altitude balloons, released both by the likes of the Met Office and by hobbyists who have permission from the Civil Aviation Authority to do so, are the only ones that kind of release these objects. For one of these balloons to be in this position would be down to a malfunction or a failure. And again, we're looking at this to be replicated in one or possibly more locations at around the same time, making it very unlikely that this is a weather balloon. A military device, could this be a new device or technology being tested by our military or government? Can't rule it out, especially with the ABAX plane seemingly scouting the area very soon after the Grimsby sighting. As our military becomes more and more technologically advanced, who knows what devices or drones could be in the development or testing phase right now. A UFO, a UAP. UFO doesn't always mean alien craft, although the extraterrestrial hypothesis has to apply in this case. Every chance this could be something alien. We really don't know. So as I mentioned, on the face of it, they look like balloons, but they aren't. After speaking to the witnesses and based on audio evidence that I've described here, I don't know what this is. This is one of the cases that we have left. One of the few cases that have left us as unidentified. We've not been able to give an answer to the witnesses. Another potentially related multiple witness case took place in an 18-hour period between quarter to 11 at night on Thursday, 21st of January, and 4:30 in the afternoon on Friday, 22nd of January in 2021. This one is another example of the importance of having a central database which draws in data and information from different sources, as it allows us to spot these types of cases which have multiple witnesses to potentially the same object. So a brief summary of the case. There were 4 reports we made in one 18-hour period. Reports range from Stockport in the northwest down to Tasley, Hampshire, heading towards the south coast. The reports were all kind of down the western side of England, which I'll explain in a minute. And all witnesses reported a triangle-shaped craft or object of some description. So sighting number 1, seen at quarter to 11 at night in Tadley, down in Hampshire. The witness was outside having a smoke and watching the night sky when he saw 3 purple lights in a triangle formation. As the lights neared, they suddenly stopped and were stationary for 2 to 3 minutes. They then started moving again, slowly heading off in the direction of Newbury in Berkshire, before they suddenly changed direction, seemingly without turning. The witness was concerned due to the close proximity of AWE, the atomic weapons establishment, which manufactures and maintains the UK's Trident nuclear warheads. And we all know there's some history between UFOs and nuclear weapons and facilities. The witness provided this sketch of what he saw, talking about these significantly bright purple lights in an equilateral triangle shape, which looked to be at a height of roughly 5,000 feet, and he states that only the lights were visible. He couldn't see an actual physical craft. On to sighting number 2. It took place a few hours later at 2 in the morning of the 22nd, up in the northwest, not far from where I live actually, in Stockport, Greater Manchester. The witness noticed 4 or 5 very bright white lights through the trees, moving in an unconventional manner. Upon viewing through binoculars, he saw 3 large, pulsating and spinning, silvery white, very bright lights in the shape of an equilateral triangle. In between the 3 main lights, he reported that there were bright red and golden copper lights flashing intermittently. The object was moving slowly and changing shape to various forms of different sized triangles. The lights were observed for around 3 minutes in total before they were lost from view behind clouds. Sighting number 3. This was reported in Wolverhampton in the West Midlands, 8 hours after the previous sighting at 10:15 a.m. in the morning. After hearing the loud rumble, the witness looked up and saw 2 objects high up, travelling west to east. One of the objects was definitely a military aircraft, grey in colour, and with visible contrails. The second object was a clear triangle shape and also grey coloured. Through binoculars, the witness saw no lights or any features or contrails, just a featureless triangle shape. Using flight radar, I was able to confirm the grey military aircraft in the area at that time was an RAF Airbus KC-2 Voyager, which was on a sortie from Brighton Autumn. So that part of the account is definitely true. There was no other aircraft in the area, at least not showing on flight radar, which could explain the second triangle object. Moving on to the 4th and final sighting of this little cluster. This was on the afternoon of the 22nd, and we're heading down to Wales, Blackwood in Monmouthshire, down near Cardiff in South Wales. After receiving a call from a relative who lives on the same estate, the witness went to look out of his upstairs window, and he saw 2 clusters of objects in the sky. The first cluster appeared to be 2 dark, sphere-shaped objects. The second cluster, which was around half a mile behind the first, consisted of 2 dark spheres and 1 dark-coloured triangle-shaped object. The witness likened it to the B-2 stealth bomber plane. These clusters were observed for around 1 minute before they disappeared into the clouds overhead. Boo. Let's now look at this map of England and Wales to give a visual idea of where these sightings took place. So, see here, down the western edge of England and into southern Wales. So where Blackwood is to the right is that blue borderline. That's the border of England and Wales. Blackwood's in South Wales there. Considering the descriptions, each one is pretty interesting. Both the Tadley and Stockport accounts report an equilateral triangle, although with different colour lights. The Blackwood report had clusters of sphere objects as well as a triangle. The Wolverhampton sighting had a military aspect to it, possibly being escorted. Is that what it was? A new aircraft being tested by the military going up and down the country? Could they all just be misidentifications? With so many reports in such a small period of time, is that likely? To add to these sightings, a day later, on the 23rd of January, a red and white triangle shape of light was seen in Leeds, West Yorkshire, not far from Stockport in Manchester. And on the 31st of January, a Facebook user reported seeing a large triangular-shaped object very low, just above the houses in Bristol. The object was black in colour, with a bright orange light along the side and moving very slowly and quietly. So, a real spate of triangle-like UFOs across England in January 2021, all across the space of a few days. A bit of a callback to the 90s when triangle sightings were rife in this country. Many attributed to the development and production of the aforementioned B-2 stealth bomber. Again, my own sighting was a black triangle in 1997. All these were reported to MUFON, with the exception of the last one, and as a result, they haven't been able to get any further information or speak to the witnesses. We only have the brief descriptions to go off. I did submit a couple of freedom of information requests in relation to the military jet that we know was there, but that never provided with us anything fruitful. An interesting few days though. In this case, again, highlights how important our database is. These reports made to different places, so were likely to be overlooked. Because we collate all these reports, put them into one visible place, it allows us to spot trends and highlight occurrences like this, which warrant further investigation. That brings us to the end of this presentation. A quick reminder of the website ufoidentified.co.uk. You can also find us on social media under the same name. And we do have a sighting report form on the website if any UK viewers would like to report your sighting to us. Make sure you check out the database, which is the biggest database of current day UFO reports in the UK. And we also have plenty of articles and detailed investigation reports to read. And finally, last year I released UK UFO Sightings 2020-2022, which features over 100 sightings reported directly to us in recent years. So it's all fresh, new, and recent information, and a great reference guide. It's split up by region, and I guarantee 95% of this or more will be brand new information to you. There's also a section on the data, similar to what I presented today, and a bit more on the work that we do as a group. It's full colour, full of photos, charts, graphs, and reports, as told by the witnesses themselves. Nothing's embellished or added to. It's the witnesses' accounts in their words. And that's available to buy on Amazon. So thanks for listening. Thanks again to Ryan for inviting me to give this talk. It is an honour to be a part of this. Thank you guys for watching. I hope it was enjoyable. Any questions, just let me know. And I hope you enjoy the rest of Anomicon 2024. Have a great evening.